So it's been 5 years since the BP oil spill. Can you talk a little bit about what the spill has done to the state of Louisiana and what needs to be done to correct the problems it's caused?
Sure, absolutely. There's several aspects to the effects of the spill in the state of Louisiana. There's an economic aspect that we're seeing being taken care of as far as to the locals and to the fishermen and to the hotels with the plaintiff steering committee settlement. There is an economic aspect to the state of Louisiana that we've not yet dealt with. And then there's a natural resource damages impact that we're still trying to quantify. We knew going into this it would take 5 to 10 years to wrap up the hundreds of studies and to draw them to conclusion of exactly what that looks like. When you look at where the oil went, when you look at some of the studies and some of the things that have found, when you look at some of the early restoration projects that we've agreed with BP, we know that there has been significant impact to not only our Barrier Island environment, but our nearshore environment and our shoreline environment. And the users of that environment, whether it's the birds that then go and fly elsewhere, whether that's Iowa or Plaquemine, and the fish and the marine mammals, whether it's the dolphins or the turtles that inhabit these areas. And so where we are right now is we're trying to tease through all the various science that's available and look for that causal relationship. Can we see enough of an effect by this oil spill to tease it out from a very dynamic environment?
And in terms of the things that the state wants to do, that it would like to do with some of the money streams that are coming out of the spill?
Sure. So under the Oil Pollution Act, when you speak toward the natural resources damage assessment piece of it, there is a requirement to make the environment back to where it would have been had the spill not occurred. And so one would think that the activities from those, again, going back to some of the early NERDA pieces, they may not be necessarily the state's master plan priorities. I mean, they're specifically geared toward either maybe the birds or maybe it's toward the fish. Where possible, we'll be looking at master plan projects. Under early restoration, we're looking at Shell West, which was a master plan project, and we're looking at Whiskey Island, which is a master plan project, and Chenier Ronquille. But we're also looking at some marshes that are closer to the edge of the marsh that may not be necessarily master plan projects. When you look at some of the other revenue streams that are a result of the spills, whether they're the criminal penalties that were supplied to the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, those dollars into the plea agreement were very specific. They're for barrier islands and or diversions, and they need to be attributed and or correspond to what we found in the master plan, and is in the master plan. And so all of the money that has been spent today in that $1.272 billion plea agreements, or the two agreements, are for those types of projects, and they're moving along. And actually one of them is under construction. It's the largest project we ever led, which is the Caminada Headland project. Under the civil fines piece, which the federal law passed to go to Restore Act, we're working very close with the Restore Council, and under this act there's actually two different granting agencies. One is the Treasury and one is Restore themselves, to submit projects and start to line up those funding sources, and we would anticipate that those projects will be, again, master plan projects. So there is an opportunity here to move forward with the projects with our goals as we move forward with the implementation of our master plan.
And lessons learned for the state in dealing with future disasters of this type. I know that at the same time that this accident occurred, Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority was really in the midst of actually gearing up and becoming a major agency of state government. How has that helped?
Yeah, you know, it was interesting, right? So during the oil spill, we were actually out restoring East Grand Terre with some of the early CAP dollars that were coming in, and actually implementing quite a few other projects in the Gulf, and having an entity that with a focus on the coast definitely has aided both in the directing of the dollars to things that are most important, as well as to having a team of engineers and scientists that can help work with all of the other agencies in the state and the federal agencies to really pull together our injury assessment. if there's a lesson learned, how would we do things better looking forward? And it's something we're also learning as CPRA with our restoration projects. The things that we historically have measured in the Gulf aren't necessarily being measured to tease out this type of effect from an oil spill event. In other words, when we measure fisheries, for example, we measure harvest. Well, harvest is a great measurement of the fish that get caught, but not maybe necessarily a great measurement of the overall communities that exist within our Gulf of Mexico. So if you try to take that type of metric and show how it applies to an overall effect or injury from the oil spill, it's very difficult. And so we'll be doing some rethinking about is there a worthwhile set of baseline metrics and measurements that we need to have as part of our coastal program, so in the future we can help better inform this injury assessment.